Welcome to the program. We left off last week talking about angles and measurements of degrees and radians. And just to review a little bit of that, we said that the angle where the x and y axis meet, they form a 90-degree angle, right? If we double that, we get the angle 180 degrees. Add another 90 to that, and that's 270. All the way around is 360. But we spent a great deal of time converting these degree measurements into radians. So the radian equivalent of those three big angles are pi over 2, pi radians, and 3 pi over 2 radians, all the way around being 2 pi radians. Okay? How are we getting these angles? We're measuring always initially from the positive x. Always remember that. The initial side is the positive x, and we get the angle based on where the terminal side lies. But for today, we will just focus on quadrant 1. And there are 5 big angles to remember in quadrant 1. And we'll talk about them mostly in radian form, but also in degree form. If the initial side and the terminal side are the same, then we have 0 as our radians and angle measurement. So that's the first angle to remember. But if we think about the x and y axis and how they form a pi over 2 angle in radians, if we bisected that angle, that perpendicular angle, we would get a perfect split here of our 90 degrees, and that corresponds with pi over 4. So that is one of the big ones that we have to remember. 90 and half is 45 degrees, of course. So 45 degrees corresponds with pi over 4 in radians. But if we take that first quadrant and we think of it as 3 equal slices, okay? Then the first angle would be pi over 6. Okay? If we add another slice the same size to that, that would be 2 pi over 6, or pi over 3. And the degree measurements that correspond to those angles are 30 degrees and 60 degrees. And we don't want to go that much further with this. We just want to identify that there are basically 5 angles here that we're looking at. The 0, 5 angles for the first quadrant: 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. Or, in radians, 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 2. Those are all located in the first quadrant, and we will find out that the other 3 quadrants are multiples of these primary angles. Thank you for watching.